Welcome to our Legacy to Legal live Q&A. While we get comfortable and ready for tonight's webinar, please, again, feel free to say hello in the Zoom chat. Feel free to introduce yourself, and we will get to the programming. If you have any questions as this webinar conversation continues, again, please drop your questions in the Zoom chat, or you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you'd like to ask us a question, we will get to the questions from the audience at the end of the conversation. So, hello, my name is Tahit Chappelle, and I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Department of State's Cannabis Training Academy. We are the state's no-cost technical assistance program aimed at helping you understand the cannabis licensing application process and gain deeper insight on the cannabis industry inside the Garden State. If you're interested in the cannabis industry or are thinking about pursuing a license, you can learn more about us at cta.nj.gov. Again, that is cta.nj.gov. Or you can contact us and email us simply at cta@sos.nj.gov. If you are listening in, this is our second Legacy to Legal webinar titled Know Your Business, Developing a Working Business Plan. We'll be producing these webinars periodically to help those who may identify as legacy operators understand that what it takes to transition to the regulated market. And with these conversations led by people who actually succeeded in making these transitions happen. So you get some real life experience and wisdom here. This specific webinar will explore what a business plan is, why it's important to have one, and how you formalize your plan to apply for a cannabis business license. Formalizing your operations is essential when preparing to transition into the legal cannabis market, and it starts with a well-developed business plan. In this conversation, we're going to connect with a legacy and dispensary operator, as well as a marketing and consulting expert, Tucky Blunt, who successfully navigated the shift to the legal regulated market. Through his experiences, you'll gain insights into the challenges and triumphs of implementing a business plan, as well as strategies for adapting, pivoting, and scaling your business in a rapidly evolving industry. And thank you so much for Jessica Gonzalez into dropping some relevant links if you'd like to register as a student. She has just dropped a link in there for you. If you'd like to learn more, there's a link in there as well. So thank you, Jess, for the alley-oop. Appreciate it. So here's how the Q&A will work. In a moment, I'm going to call on our speaker, Tucky Blunt. I'll let him introduce himself and give a brief introduction. After that, we're going to learn more about Tucky's background and experience. And then at the end, if you have any questions while Tucky and I are going through our Q&A, drop them in the Zoom chat or ask them in the Q&A box. We will go through some prepared questions first, and then we will get to the audience questions right after that. So without further ado, let me bring up Tucky and let's learn a little bit. West Coast.
Yes,
Hello,
sir. How
Tucky.
you doing? How you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Tucky, thank you again for your time. Thank you again for
No
blessing us
problem.
with your wisdom. I'm going to let the stage have you. Give us a little bit of introduction of who you are, and then we'll get into the
Okay.
questions.
My name is Alfonso Tucky Blunt. Little bit about me. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I believe in the Holy Spirit, but I've been selling weed for about 30 years. um, Started selling cannabis when I was about 16. Cannabis has always been like in my family. It's never been like a bad thing. I'm 45, so I'm familiar with the DARE era, but for me, DARE was like for drugs. Cannabis to me wasn't a drug. And around 96, when I turned 16, I started selling cannabis. For me, I approached it as a business always. It was never just like a hustle. I really figured out a way to make money, selling cannabis. But my goal was always to do it legally. And at the time when I started, there was no legal option. As fate will have it, I ended up catching a weed case in 2005. Me catching that case allowed me to qualify for a program that Oakland debuted in 2016 called the Social Equity Program. Um, I did a bingo ball drawing, submitted an application, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, I'm the first ex-felon for selling cannabis to open a retail store called Blunts and More. And my store was about 13 blocks from where I was arrested in Oakland for selling cannabis in the first place.
Wow,
Pretty
how
cool.
that works. Wow.
Right. Since then had its up and downs as we'll get into with this. So I'm glad that, these are things people need to understand what's going on. We have to teach each other so we don't bump our heads. So this is great
Right.
that you guys are doing this. I wish I had a me coming in, but I didn't. So I had to bump my head. Um, but in bumping my head and learning them, I call them lessons. I don't call them losses. Me learning those lessons allowed me to be where I am now and actually be in a better place than I was then. That's pretty much it. I'm an open book. I believe that it doesn't hurt me to help other people. So this is what we need. We need to know what's going on so we know. And New Jersey's different than California, but it's all encompassing what's going on so people can understand. So thank y'all again for
Absolutely.
having me.
Absolutely. And we appreciate your time, Tucky, again. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the entry point. So, California has been ahead in terms of legalization. They passed medical back in 96, and then they
Yep.
legalized before New Jersey.
Yep.
For you living in California, when you first heard about adult use recreational legalization, what were your initial thoughts? Was this the day that you were like, oh my God, my dream is finally about to start? Or were you like, what is going on here?
So again, when I started, it was 96. I had no idea that cannabis clubs existed or anything, or you can get a weed card. Didn't know. I was just underground with it. I sold a lot of mild cannabis at work, wherever I worked at. But in 1999, I was 19 and my grandmother took me on it. I was riding her around, taking her on errands, and she had me take her to a place to get her some medicine. I didn't know what was going on. I'm just in front, sitting in the car. When she came back, she had a white bag. And I'm like, Granny, what you got in that bag? She's like, I have weed in there. I said, you bought weed out of a store? She said, yeah, for my cataracts. I got a cannabis card and everything. This was 99. That next day, I went and got a cannabis card. So that was my first knowing about being able to legally go in shops and buy cannabis. And that was an actual thing. That's when I found out it was 1999.
And then when from 1999 all the way through, did
Mm-hmm.
you also have friends that were also entering and trying to figure out how to get in?
Definitely. Like for me, as I said initially, cannabis selling for me, I always approached as a business. So if my grandmother's coming out of business that's selling cannabis, I need to do whatever I need to do to learn about that business. So
Mhm.
aside from me getting my first cannabis card, I started working at a bunch of different cannabis clubs within Oakland, Hayward, just different places in Northern California, and was able to see and learn the ins and outs of how to run a legal at that time what was to
Yeah,
us a legal cannabis shop. I had different friends. We all learned how to, did different things, learning how to grow. Just if you were in it for the same reasons I was in it, it benefited you to work in a store. Some people
right.
didn't see the point of it because they wanted to be on the streets. I never wanted to sell cannabis on the streets. I always felt that cannabis should be able to be bought out of a store, just like cigarettes, alcohol, or anything else. As a youngster, so
Yeah. And we often hear that too, that sometimes the best experience before you even decide of trying to be an owner is to enter the industry, enter the
yep.
workforce, get
Yes,
an inside look of what it actually takes, and then be able to apply that. So I appreciate you
yes.
bringing that up. Let's talk about, your first retail shop that you opened up.
Mhm.
What influenced you to make blunts and more? What made you decide to transition and do that retail? Like, tell us about that origin story of how that came to be.
Oh, little bit back. So we get to 99. We're doing all this. We're selling weed. We're going to the stores. We're learning everything about it. And then in 2002, I started growing cannabis. So I was taking what I was growing by 2003, 2004 back to the stores that I was working in. So now it's just a
Mhm.
full cycle. I'm like, okay, this is great. But I still never had a chance of ownership back then. Um, to be totally honest, a lot of people I was around that was of a different race told me that black people would never own in this space. They didn't think we had the work. What's the word I wanted? The business acumen to handle
Mhm.
it. And I'm like, well, no, I'm looking at what's going on. You're just counting money and selling weed. Like, I mean, you got the business. You got to keep the lights on. I know how to pay rent bills. I can do this.
Right.
So I still never had a chance to own. But we fast forward to 2017. After I remember, I said I called my case in 2005.
Yep.
2017, I get a phone call from Mike Marshall. Mike Marshall is the voice of I Got Five on It, the guy that's actually singing I Got Five on It. Yeah.
Hmm.
Called me and he said, hey, Tucky, have you ever caught a weed case in Oakland? And I'm like, yeah, I have. That's kind of strange you asked me that, but I have. And he was like, well, there's a program called a social equity program. And I know two sisters out of Atlanta who are trying to be a part of the program, but they need someone from Oakland to finish the loop. I said, well, what do they want from me? He was like, just to talk to you. I said, well, if anything happens, if magic happens and we open a store, what would you want? He was like, I grow weed. Can you just sell my brand at your store? I said, no problem. We, got off the phone. I went and met with them. And for me, once we sat down and I actually heard that because while he's talking to me, I'm looking up the social equity program on my laptop. And at the time, I was working for Tesla. I'm an auto detailer as well, been detailing since I was a kid. So I was working for Tesla as a detail trainer. I was teaching people how to detail cars. I was still selling weed on the side, but nothing like, didn't think about no store, wasn't in my radar, nothing.
Right.
I go meet with them. I'm in the meeting thinking like this is going to be great. We can open a store, like just hearing about the program, seeing what it was about. I fit the criteria. I caught a
Mhm.
case in a certain zone, in a certain time frame, and that's who they was looking for to target to give these licenses to. So I'm like, oh, that's great. So we did the application. We submitted it in I met these people September of 17. We submitted the application December of 17. The city of Oakland had the lottery drawing January 31st of 18. So what that was, just a little bit of what it was. You grab a bingo ball, you throw the bingo ball in the chamber. 36 applications made it through all the got through and it was approved. So they rolled a bingo ball chamber. If they pick your ball out, you lost. If you was one of the 4 remaining balls after they went through roll and pick out, roll and pick out, you won a license. That's how I won my license, right? So we win the license. Once you win the license, this is just what was going on in Oakland. Kind of the same everywhere else, but not. People have taken notes and changed it. But they give you a certain amount of time to find someone that's going to rent you a space. They gave you a license, but where are you going to open your store at? So
Right.
you have a certain amount of time to get a letter of intent, a LOI, for someone that's going to rent you the space. Now, you have to do that. You got to get funding because, again, we're poor. Part of qualifications for being social equity was being low income. Where does this money come from? I'm sure we'll get into, how that looks and whatever. I'm sure we'll get into that. But what happened was we finally found a place that we could open. My partner's last name at that time happened to be Moore. My last name is Blunt. My wife was like, why don't
Mhm.
y'all just use both y'all last names and just call it Blunt some more? And I was like, ding, ding, ding. And that was the beginning of Blunt some more. Literally,
Wow. Wow.
literally.
We
Opened up
are,
November of 2018. Again, after only knowing these people for a year. So that
uh,
gets to go into how things ended up. But
yeah.
it started
Yeah.
great. It started great.
We can briefly touch on partnerships and vetting people and vendors in
Yep.
a second. So,
Yep.
the theme of today is business plan. Can you talk to me about when you were applying for a license to get into the lottery? How did you build your business plan? Had you ever tried anything like that before?
So me personally, I've had other businesses, but not to the scale of where I needed a business plan per se. These were my own businesses. I knew how to run them, detail business. So
Yeah.
it was just like, all right, cool. I didn't need that. But this was a different type of thing where you needed a business plan. Luckily for me, one of the people who were part of the mother-daughter team that I met was a paralegal. And then
Mhm.
part of the team that they brought in were some of their friends who were attorneys. So they had already knew about business plans. They, taught me some. And then the people who ended up being our landlord, they also had business plans. So we was able to kind of like get tutelage from them and build it and go from there. But I'm gonna give y'all a tip. Chat GPT is the best thing going to build you a business plan.
Oh,
Like the
really?
like the best. You can go pay somebody to have, but if you talk to Chat GPT and it gets to know you and the different things you're working on, business plans, it'll spit out just like that. And that's free game, free 99. Now it does cost $20 to have the one that does all that for you, but $20 a month to be able to create business plans like that
Yeah.
is something I didn't know coming in. You know what I mean? We spent a lot of money paying for people to do business plans and paying for people to do this, which is fine. But if I can give a person a tool to cut that middleman out, that's what I'm going to do. So, yes, I didn't have much experience with the business plans, but I had to learn very, very, very fast because everything was on a time schedule. If you didn't have your place by a certain amount of time, you could lose your license.
Mhm.
So, once we got the business plan together, it was very just a simple business plan. Just I mean, we will get into what a business plan looks like, but just a simple business plan. It's just what you're gonna do, what your goals are, what kind of staff you need, what kind of space you're in, how much is your rent, your PG&E, your water, your garbage, just all of that you put into the plan. You got to do your estimates. So it's a lot, but you needed to know where you're at because you're finna open a business. You need to know what's going on. You know what I mean? So
Right.
important, definitely.
Do you remember how many pages your business plan was? And let's talk about what was in it. What did you start with?
Okay. So initially, the business plan was like all over the place. I'm talking about it was a whole binder. It was just because we had put HR stuff in there, hiring stuff, interview questions. It was a lot. But we was able to scale it down and kind of like maybe make it like a 10 pager. Each page basically had a different part of the plan on it. Things that I could think of just right offhand that was in it was just budgeting, marketing, um, of course, all your bills, your staff, and how much that bill was going to be every month, your taxes. You had to have a section about, how to pay taxes because you'll have a business plan, but that is your business plan. You need to know how to do your taxes and, talk to, if you don't know how to do it, get you a CPA hire. You know what I'm saying? So all of that stuff was in the business plan. We had goals. We put goals and stuff in the business plan because I think it is, if you're going into a business, it is good to have goals. We had our debt information within the business plan, show kind of like a graph of like what we want to make to be able to pay off the loans that we got from people and then keep going, stuff like that. What else can I think of? We had the layout of the business itself. We had estimations on like how many customers we wanted to see per day and stuff like that. So it was just like really it was like doing a business in reverse because
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? So it was like, yeah, you're building it, but at the same time, you have to know what's in a business to be able to build a plan. So it
Hmm.
kind of like we worked our way backwards and then it was able to come out, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
No, no, I like the way that you
Okay.
described it. A
Okay.
business plan is always evolving. So, from the time that you
Yes.
all initially agreed to the business plan to the
Yes.
outcome of that, tell us about the evolution. What do people have to keep in mind as you go through the process, even after you create your initial business plan?
I've told the city this and just different people I've talked to, always leave room for the what ifs. Um, it's not like when we're dealing with voting and you're stuck with something 4 years. If we created a business plan, even if it's something that we signed and it's in a contract, DocuSign or whatever, put a clause in there that says we can revisit this after 90 days. We can revisit this after 180 days, whatever it is. Give yourself something already in the bylaws that allows you to review this in case things change. The climate change, you might have for me, I had three teams that was by my store when I first opened. The
Mhm.
Oakland A's, the Oakland Raiders, and the Golden State Warriors. All three of them teams are gone. So
Mhm.
that might be a time to revisit your business plan because you're not making that same walk-up money from all those events. So if you put something within your paperwork, within your business plan, within your documentation to allow y'all grace to be able to come back to the table and look back over things, it'll help out a lot. We didn't have that at first. I mean, going in, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And that's something I've learned by dealing with what I went through. But no, we didn't have that at first. But if I can tell y'all what to do now, put something in there to give y'all time to come back to the table and go over things and make sure it's really working. Because if you do it for 2 years and it's not working, you done wasted all that time. We could have just came back after you knew it wasn't working in 60 days and figured it out. So
Right. And did you feel overall, though, with the initial business plan that helped you make that transition and apply
yeah, oh
with
yes.
confidence?
Yes, 100%. Our business, like we had one of the highest ranked applications. Like the team that was
Oh.
built, yeah, with the team that was built was a great team based on their knowledge of what they knew how to do. I was coming in as just the guy who got arrested, who could be the face of the brand, give a little bit of business knowledge that I have, but I didn't know cannabis legally like they did. I
Mhm.
kind of like, I learned the 96, 97, 98, 99, of that era, but I wasn't in the scene like that no more. So we had a great business plan. That's why we were able to get selected as one of those 36 entries into the
Mhm.
into the drawing. Well over 300-400 people submitted application. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about you mentioned contracts and whatnot and
Mm-hmm.
partnerships.
Yep.
How does that influence a business plan and how do you prepare for potential changes in partnerships?
So everything is about having your contracts in order and having stuff written down, getting it notarized. So when we built our partnership, again, these are people I just met in September and we had a license in January. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about 3 months. There's not really a long time to get to know someone, especially for something that could be a multi-million-dollar business. So for me, the kind of person I am personally, I'm coming in genuine. Hey, let's work. We're trying to build, but I'm not knowing that these partners are coming in for different reasons. What I will say is when you're building your team, because you're going to need a team to do this. You're not gonna be able to do it by yourself. If you can do it with family, great. But sometimes family don't mix with business. I hate that, but sometimes it doesn't. But if it does, do it. But with us and our partnership, and I told them this too, just be honest out the gate. If you're coming in and you want to be on some scam, I don't want to cuss some scam stuff. say that. I might want to scam with you, but you didn't give me that opportunity and you just assumed, you know what I'm saying, you took my kindness for weakness. That's not what you're supposed to do. That's not really a partnership. Just tell me the real. Say, hey, Tucky, I just want to make a few quick bucks, go about my business. We don't got to be friends. Don't do that. Like people I'm partnering with, I'm inviting to my house. We're supposed to be family. I'm thinking this is how we build, and everyone's not on that. I think honesty helps these contracts, but then just keep it a band. Whatever y'all are talking about needs to be written down, needs to be notarized. It's a lot of shady partnerships that are
Mm,
going on in the spaces because you're like stuck in a predicament. This person to let you borrow this money and they kind of like using you to not only bring the money back that they let you borrow, but then whatever else they can get out you. It's just it's all based on people having higher expectations than what's really going on in the space. And this is why stuff like this is important. I'm not against partnerships. I'll partner with somebody right now, and I've had two bad partnerships, but I know what I'm looking for and what to look for within that partnership. I just had a
right.
good friend of mine who owns a dispensary in the Bay. He came to me and said, "Hey, I'm finna finally reach out to my upper team and ask for an audit, like ask for, the finances." I said, look, when you ask them, if they say why, you have a problem. It should be here you go, sir, no problem. Like it shouldn't be an
Mm,
issue. If there's a question, that's an issue. And that money that everyone thinks that everyone is making in this space is why a lot of these partnerships are going by the wayside. Um, and it's unfortunate because you're gonna need a partner. You're gonna need capital. If your
right.
requirement for you to get into this space, if we're talking about legacy, most social equity legacy, most of us are poor. Well, I'm not gonna say poor, but in California, you can make $150,000 a year and be low income. So you understand what I'm saying? So that's a
Sure.
requirement is for us to not have money, and then you're expecting us to pay for a space that in most, like when you rent a space, when you're getting that LOI and you got that building, you're paying rent on a space that may need to be built out. Where does that
Hmm.
money come from? So you might be paying
Hmm.
on this space a year to get built out. Who's paying that bill? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's
and
like,
you have to have that in your plan too. You have to be projecting the expenses, right? Right.
yes, sir.
Want to give a quick little shout out. Thank you, Jess. If for those
Hey,
that,
Jess.
hey Jess, if those that are going through the Cannabis Training Academy, level 5 focuses on business planning. For those that go through our coursework, and then also management service agreements, financial service agreements, those are also mentioned in our chat or in our program.
Yes.
For those that have
And
questions, please drop questions in the Zoom chat, or you can use the Q&A box. Let's talk about looking back in retrospect.
yep,
Tucky, what would you have done differently before you
nothing.
decide going for the license? Nothing.
Nothing, nothing. I'm a big believer if everything happens for a reason. The path that I'm on is the path I'm on. Just and I didn't even mention this when I said I caught my case. I caught my case because someone snitched on me. One of my homies who I was buying weed from snitched on me. That led to me owning a legal dispensary in the same area he snitched on me on. That led to me meeting and talking to you and knowing Jess. I wouldn't I wouldn't change nothing because the path I was on is the path I was meant to be on. I'm not knowing in my cognizant mind like I'm doing these things to stay on this path because I would have never known that me catching that case would have led to blunts and more.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? But that's the path I'm on. And I don't mean that like to be like cocky that I wouldn't do nothing different, but why would I do something different? I had to go through the things I went through to learn those lessons so I'm able to share what I
Yeah,
went through. You know
absolutely.
what I mean? So
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
yes,
For
sir.
those that are if those that are, still operating in the legacy market, what would be
Mhm.
some factors that you would say people should consider before they decide if they should actually transition? What are some major factors to think about and sit with and really think about?
Right. No, so for me, I've always been because people always say, does the street sales bother your store? No, man. Like people buy tree from who they and where they want to buy tree from. So let me just put that out there. I'm not telling everybody named mama to jump into space and sell weed. It may not work. And then another thing with that, just you're gonna be in the space at least 2 years and not make a dime if you're plant touching, meaning selling the weed, growing the weed, the plant touching stuff. But if you can get in the space on the ancillary side while still having what you're trying to do plant touching, but using your ancillary to funnel the money into that, you could win. But I don't know, bro. It's a great space. and it has a lot of potential, but do your research and do what you normally do in your 9 to 5. Bring that to the cannabis space. So if you legacy and you get down and you know how to do your thing, that's great. But again, selling weed in the legal, you got to have a brand. It's all about branding. You might have a brand to your mom and pop people, but do you have enough to where you can get in the store and you got to be going to work, putting yourself in 100 different stores? Do you have time for all of that? If you don't, and you don't know about 280E and little things like that, then you may want to say, well, hey, maybe I make a clothing brand that's cannabis related. Maybe I make some lighters or do some merch. Do that until you find your niche. And then you could also use them, just, use your other money to help funnel that too. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So it just,
Hmm.
I get it, because I've been on both sides. I'm never telling nobody, no, the streets is don't do this. No, the streets is what it is. It's what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's not going anywhere. People pick who and where they want to buy their tree from. But if you are on the legacy side and you want to come in and just like, hey, I want to own a store, let me pause you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Do these other things to help get you grounded to where you can own your store. The biggest thing with this space, and I'm pretty sure every other space, is owning the land. 95, man, I'm gonna say 100% of the people that got licenses in the Bay don't own their space. Let me not say 100 because I can't speak on
Mm.
everybody, but let's just say 95 don't own their spaces. And it's not because we couldn't buy them, it's because kicking out the gate, just some stuff, back office. When the social equity program and all that stuff came down and they knew they were going to have green zones, only certain people that don't look like us found out about the green zone. So they went and bought up all the property in the green zones, and now they're the only ones renting to people and charging whatever they want because
Mm.
you got to get in here, don't you? What you gonna pay?
The green
You
tax,
gotta
huh?
own. You gotta own the land. Those are things too that's just key. But yes, legacy to legal people that are listening and you're thinking about making a transition, do something branding wise that can make you money. That's not something that you don't have to deal with 280E. Because as soon as you have to deal with 280E, you get no write-offs. We're not talking about that. That's not for this webinar, but look up 280E. And if you don't want to deal with 280E until they make it federally legal, you might as well do something else and make stuff for the cannabis space and then get your money that way.
Last two questions for you, Tucky. One of them deals with, you talked about you're going to need a team of some sort. You're going to need to hire some attorneys or have some people who understand legal. Talk about if you could build kind of a super team or a dream team of professionals to hire right off the bat, who would be
Yep.
in your top five? Who would be people that are
CPA,
critical?
a CPA, tax accountant, whatever you want to call it, but a CPA. If this CPA has attorneys and all those people on their staff, one-stop shop, great. But CPA, you need an attorney. Um, it will be good to have a financial advisor or a money person, somebody who has the liquid that they're not really tripping off of. They can throw it to you, give you 2 years to do what you need to do, not hounding you, give you good interest rates. So definitely CPA, attorney, financial advisor. I would have a construction person in my back pocket, a legal construction person, somebody that does good work.
A legal
And
licensed construction
yes,
worker.
a legal licensed construction person.
Check the licenses of your vendors first.
Yes. And then honestly and truthfully, and this may just sound strange, have some clergy on deck. Have a spiritual advisor as part of your team. Have
Hmm.
somebody that can keep y'all grounded when y'all come to these meetings and come and like pray over the meeting before we get started. These are things that I'm trying to develop from going through what I went through, but we didn't have that. We had a money person, we had a lawyer, but we didn't have no. I was a spiritual person, you know what I'm saying? But I would say,
You wore
I would say,
multiple hats, is what you're
yeah, I have
saying.
multiple hats, but I would say have a spiritual advisor as part of your team. It may sound kind of like, huh, but like having a calmness and being grounded and like really coming into your meetings and partnerships and stuff like genuine, I think really, really helps because the people I was dealing with, they weren't genuine. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And it backfired. Like, how do you come to a person's wedding and then steal from them? Like, what? Like, who does that? Like, so those are just lessons learned, but you don't change who you are because they bad people. And I'll
Right.
never do that. You know what I mean?
Wise words. Appreciate that. Last question, and if anyone has any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A box or the Zoom chat. Talk about Beyond Blunts and more. What's working in the future for you? What's going on right now?
I am really, really, really working on speaking engagements. I also have a brand called the Happy Lounge, which is a mobile. like wellness. We're not just smoking, but it's a mobile wellness pop-up where we do wellness teachings, may get a massage, may have some giveaways, little merch and stuff for sale, but it's just places to buy and consume cannabis safely. I got the lounge license, and then I have a delivery service. So I can basically be a store on the road, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So that works for me. And I can do it all over California, but I can also take it to other states. So if people want to partner, hello. And then aside from that, like I said, speaking engagements, I'm really, really focused on the speaking engagements. I have a detail business again, so I'm detailing cars again too. But for me, I really want to get on the speaking bag. So I go to all these different conferences, right? And you see who the keynotes are. You see, what the most part, for the most part, what and who they look like. And they're
Mhm.
all talking the same thing. None of them are telling you what's really going on in the space. And I've submitted my panel topics to all of them from the Bazinga zone down. And they always like, yeah, it's a good idea, but they never pick it up because they don't want to hear it from me, I guess. But I
Mm.
don't care. So now it's time to, when I'm doing my mobile stuff, I may have a venue where we're doing a talk at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's because if I can't get into spaces, I got to create my own space. And
absolutely.
there's things that people need to hear that are not being told by the people that are going through it. And it just don't, it's baffling to me why people just won't, like, dude, tell them that that's what's going on. Why would you allow them to work with them people? And you know that that's going on. Why would you do that? So just really getting out there and really talking about what's really going on. I'm working on a book, kind of like a
Ooh.
life book, but then also miniature books about different things that's going on. I'm a father, I'm a husband, so I don't want to only be known as just weed, even though that has been my life for 29, 30 years, but I'm more than weed. And it's time for the world to see that. So that's what I'm working on.
And speaking of, other things that you do, you have a consulting service, I believe, right?
Yes,
Tell
yes,
us a little bit
yes.
about that. I saw someone in the chat may want to connect with you. So
Oh
tell us
yeah.
about that and then let us know how people can connect with you too.
So what's crazy is since the consulting thing came up, wow, Blunts and More was going down. So we had Blunts and More, right? I was being paid as a staff member. That wasn't working. You know what I mean? Because you got the taxes, you got different stuff. It was different. So it's crazy. You learn from people that do stuff to you. One of the people who was robbing me was like, "Hey, why don't you get you a consulting LLC? It's a way for you to actually get paid from the store as a consultant, and you can get tax write-offs and stuff for that." I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." That's what I derived. I had no intention of being a consultant. I don't mind like getting on my live and giving free game, but it was a way for me to make extra money, but actually really being a genuine consultant and really trying to help businesses that I work with make more money. And that's literally what I've been on. I got a few clients now. One of my biggest ones is the Black Cultural Zone, which has nothing to do with cannabis, but they have a big zone in Oakland and they're being under promoted. So I offer my services.
Mm.
And they like, yeah, let's run it. And then I do a lot of detail consulting. I teach people how to detail cars still. I still am a trainer. I still teach cannabis classes. I work for the Harrington Institute with Al Harrington.
Al Harrington, yeah.
I used to teach for them and I still teach. So my consulting thing is super easy to find me. I'll put my
Yeah, yeah,
email in the chat.
drop it in for the folks.
Um, but yeah, the way I consult is we have a 15-minute convo, see what you're trying to do, what you're trying to work on. And I'm pretty sure that I'm willing to say 98% by the time we're off of that phone call, you'll probably have some thoughts about switching what you want to do. Not like in a bad way, but it's just people always come in and have these high thoughts and let me just tell you what's going on, and then we go from there. But then after that, we set up a however you want to do it. If you want to do like a monthly, a yearly, or whatever, I'm available and I make it I think I'm fairly priced. I'm not trying to get over on anyone, but when you do sign up with me, we're locked in for life. So any of my black book you can use, any of my connections. If you want to call me just randomly on a Friday, you need to holler or whatever. I still had a relationship with all my students, all my consulting clients, and everything. So I'll
Amazing.
put that definitely in the chat. Um, yeah, I just feel it's important to share what's going on. It's also important to pay for knowledge. I pay for stuff. I just took a class. Like I pay to go to school to learn other things to be able to teach people. So if
Absolutely.
you want to better yourself, I call it like investing in yourself. If you want to
Yep.
do good in the cannabis space, why not pay someone who's been through the stuff who can tell you? And the way I teach is based off what you want to know. I have a lesson plan. I can go through that lesson plan, but you might not want to hear that. And that's one thing I hated in school. Teach me what I want to know. So if you tell me what it is you want to work on, then I can gear my lesson plan toward you personally. So I really love that. And my students tend to really like that because they like, everyone just wants to teach everything. I don't really want to know everything. I only want to know about 1, 2, and 3. All right, let's work on 1, 2, and 3. So
All right,
pretty
all
cool.
right.
Pretty cool.
Thank you, Tucky. I'll take a question
Thank
from
you.
the audience. It says,
Yes.
based on your story, it seems like you might have you've made multiple pivots. Can you talk about your experience shifting gears in the cannabis space? Talk about pivoting. What does that mean for you?
So pivoting is a word that's going to be around forever in the cannabis space because they make it kind of hard on us to make money. So you have to figure out ways to pivot. When I originally first opened, I did not want a delivery. I didn't want a consumption lounge because I was just focused on trying to have the store. I didn't really know what else to do. Then there came a time where like, I have space for a consumption lounge. Let me put a consumption lounge at my store. I developed the first outdoor consumption lounge in Oakland history on accident. I was just like, let me put it out there. Now I'm doing delivery when I was just so against it. You have to learn to pivot based on your situation. Now, if you open a store and everything is good, you find off the shelves, you was able to buy your land, you got good partnerships, more power to you. But if you go through things, especially in this space, you have to learn how to pivot because they've said it's so much stuff that's so many barriers for us. And I don't mean just social equity, general applicants, everybody's going through it. And that's something else that's not being talked about. Nobody's making money, but no one's talking about it. You know what I'm saying? And part of that is why I do what I do. And I think that's why it's important that we do people like that we doing this. Like I really, 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 before I get off, genuinely appreciate what y'all are doing. Oakland tried to have help for us out the gate, but they were new. It's kind of hard for the new people to give you stuff.
Yeah, to
You
teach.
understand what I'm saying? So
Right,
that's why
right.
you put the
We
stuff
had to
in
take
there
our
and say,
time
hey,
building this. Yes.
exactly. You got to go back and say, all right, that didn't work. Let's try this again. And that's where Oakland is at right now with their programs. It's time to like revamp, come back to the table and do stuff that's working for us now. But all the other states have taken notes and done what they needed to do, but they have reached out. I've had people come all the way from Connecticut to Blunt some more to come talk to me about what they should do at their stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Free.
right.
I'm not charging them nothing. Come on, let's because that's what we need to do. Now, when you set it up, if you want to hire me, then cool, I'll come through, do what I need to do. I'm a member of the NJ Stark program too. So if y'all want to, you feel me, I'm on there, you know?
I
So,
hear you.
but no, I really genuinely appreciate what y'all doing. Jess, she behind the scenes. Y'all have always shown love. Y'all have always done excellent work, and it's needed. The only way the space is going to survive is if we're educating each other.
Absolutely. Perfect way to end it. Tucky Blunt, appreciate you, homie. Really, thank you so much. We'll keep you on here for a second. I don't know
Okay.
if you want to hop on after this, but everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have no further questions, Tucky has put his contact email in the Zoom chat, so please
Yep.
feel
And
free
I'm
to
Tucky
take that
Blunt
down.
everywhere.
Oh
I
yeah,
check my inboxes, just Tucky Blunt everywhere. Feel
and
free
we
to hit me
dropped in
up.
your LinkedIn as well into the Zoom
Cool.
chat too, for
Perfect.
those that want to connect with him on
Perfect.
LinkedIn. You can also find him on LinkedIn as well. Everybody, thank you so much. Again, check out the Cannabis Training Academy, cta.nj.gov. Multiple levels were mentioned here: level 2, level 5, level 6. So many things about business planning. Level 4, so many things about business planning. Make sure you understand what you're doing before you get in. This is a no-cost online technical assistance program. If you have any questions, if you want to follow up with us, feel free to email us at cta@sos.nj.gov. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right.